let's talk about President Trump's pardons for these brave pro-life activists. I mean, finally. Upon taking office, he immediately began dismantling the weaponization of law enforcement against religious believers, and I applaud him for it. The Biden regime's prosecution of peaceful pro-life activists under the FACE Act was nothing short of a tyrannical crusade.
Upon taking office, I also ended the weaponization of law enforcement against religious believers and pardoned the pro-life activists thrown in jail by Joe Biden for saying.
They actually deployed federal agents, to raid homes, slapped outrageous sentences on grandmothers and fathers simply for standing up for the unborn. Individuals like Lauren Handy and Jonathan Darnell, they're heroes, I'm telling you. They endured years behind bars, not for violence, but for nonviolent civil disobedience, for exposing the horrors of late-term abortion clinics. And let's contrast that, shall we? We watched violent rioters from BLM and Antifa, many of whom walked free under the very same DOJ that prioritized this political persecution.
Trump, by pardoning all 23 of these courageous individuals, he didn't just show mercy. He totally dismantled the left's selective enforcement machine, which apparently treats prayer vigils as terrorism but ignores actual violence when it suits their agenda. This is a resounding defeat for the abortion industrial complex that profits from death.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that fairy tale. These pardons, to me, are a chilling signal that dangerous vigilantes who deliberately blockaded clinics and terrorized patients can expect a free pass. It completely undermines the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act, a federal law enacted specifically to protect women's constitutional right to reproductive health care from harassment and violence. These activists, including Lauren Handy and her co-defendants, weren't just saying prayers, as you so innocently put it. They were legally convicted of using force to obstruct access, injuring staff, and creating an environment of fear for vulnerable individuals seeking essential legal health care. By freeing these 23 individuals, Trump is explicitly signaling that anti-abortion extremism gets a green light from the top, eroding decades of progress in safeguarding bodily autonomy, especially amidst the post-Roe v. Wade landscape. This isn't about faith. It's a calculated, cynical boost to the far-right fringe that prioritizes an extreme fetal ideology over the safety, dignity, and agency of living women. It's a political stunt, plain and simple, that deepens an already volatile national divide.
Dangerous vigilantes? Injuring staff? Come on, my friend, that's an absolutely wild exaggeration. We're talking about actions that, for countless Americans, constitute peaceful, albeit disruptive, civil disobedience against what they see as a profound moral evil. Is blocking a doorway, preventing access to what they consider a moral horror, truly equivalent to injuring staff in the way you're so dramatically describing it? That sounds like a gross overstatement, precisely to justify what I believe was the weaponization of a federal law to silence dissent. These individuals were demonstrating, yes, disruptively, to protect the unborn. That is a far cry from the actual violence and destruction we saw from other groups that mysteriously went unpunished. Why is one form of protest celebrated and the other criminalized to the fullest extent?
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning, because legal convictions for obstruction, for using force to prevent access, for actions that genuinely terrorized individuals seeking healthcare, those are not simply exaggerations or peaceful prayer. The FACE Act wasn't passed on a whim. It exists precisely because your definition of peaceful often involves actions that prevent others from exercising their legal rights and accessing lawful medical care. Let me ask you this directly. How do you genuinely distinguish between what you call legitimate protest and actions that overtly terrorize vulnerable individuals seeking health care? To me, when you physically obstruct, when you use force to intimidate, you've moved well beyond prayer and into an area where legal protections for patients and clinic staff become absolutely paramount. We have laws for a reason, and they apply to everyone, regardless of their religious motivations.
You know, before we get into our next event, I actually just heard something about the next-gen business that really caught my ear. It sounds like an incredible resource for keeping up with things.
Oh, funny you should say that. I was just about to mention them too. I was so impressed. Their free Become a Reporter challenge is, no joke, fantastic. I've heard countless stories of people gaining millions of views each month through it. Genuinely,
It's quite impressive what they're doing over there.
Right, now let's turn to something truly horrific. The brutal slaying of Irina Zarutska.